Hola, mi gente. Welcome to another episode of the Wine and Chisme podcast, a podcast created to share the stories of everyday people doing remarkable things in communities of color, all while sipping on a glass of wine. In this episode, I got the chance to speak with Delia Jasso, a Tejana from Dallas who owns a consulting business that deals with governmental affairs and education. She's the creator of the University of Texas at Arlington and Dallas Area Rapid Transit Transportation Leadership Academy. Delia was named a 2018 Minority Business Leader Honoree by the Dallas Business Journal, and after 10 years as serving as the chairwoman of the board for Texas Can Academies, was honored with an employee scholarship fund being named after her. Delia also served the city of Dallas as an elected official to the Dallas City Council representing District 1. But due to gerrymandering and redrawn districts, lost her re-election bid after 4 years serving her community. She has seen a lot of change in Dallas, and I can't wait to share her story. So grab your glass of wine and join us for the Chisme. Hola, mi gente. Welcome to another episode of the Wine and Chisme podcast. I'm very, very excited today because I'm doing my first remote podcast. And I'm doing it with somebody who I have actually looked up to from afar while I lived in Dallas. And her name is Delia Jasso. She has a very extensive record within public service, in philanthropy, and a lot of things. And she's actually just launched a new program that we'll get into. But before we get into that, before we get into the chisme, you guys know we have to get into the wine. So because we're remote, both Delia and I are drinking probably a little bit different wines. So today I am drinking an Estancia Vinyards Pinot Noir 2017.
Ooh,
what do you have going on over there, Delia?
Okay, we have a winery actually near Dallas. It's up closer to Oklahoma. It's called Lost Oak Winery. My husband and I have been there before, and it's like close to Oklahoma, so it's at least 3 hours away. And this one is called the Diamond Double Red, and it's from, like I said, the winery here in near Dallas. It's very good.
Nice. All right. Well, we always got to start by taking a drink of our wine. And I love Pinot Noirs, and I have had Estancia before, so this is really good. I think I got this one. I am somebody who it doesn't matter what the price point is. If I like it, I like it. Right. So I got this one from Trader Joe's, I think for like $9.99.
Oh, I'm going to look for it.
Yeah. Definitely. Trader Joe's has really good prices on wine.
I know. They're very good.
So, Delia, let's dive right into it. You are a major presence in Dallas. You're somebody that I became very aware of early in my time in Dallas, and we've kind of passed a couple passings here and there with a lot we were discussing previously. We have a lot of mutual people. I was a transplant from California, and I moved back to California. But you are through and through, not just like Tejana, but like a Dallasite. You are through and through a Dallas woman, correct?
Yep, born and raised right here. And so, it was a long time ago.
So having family that goes back, not only like within Texas and being a Mexican American woman, right. A Tejana woman, has that like affected your worldview, or how do you think your worldview has kind of come to be, being somebody who's like has family generations back going to Dallas, raised in Dallas, all of these different things within Dallas?
I think it's affected me in a positive way because some of the same people that grew up with my parents and their parents are people that I'm still connected with. So that part of it is real positive. I mean, I can, the people that I went to, especially college, because there were only a handful of us at SMU who were Mexicanos, and all of us were from Dallas. And I graduated from SMU in the before the 80s. No, I graduated from college in 76. And I am still connected to those people.
Oh, wow.
There were approximately about 8 of us that were from Dallas, were Hispanics, and did stuff together on campus. And then there were 3 Hispanics in the law school who also were Dallasites. And so we kind of did stuff together, all 12 of us. There were probably a dozen of us. So, and oddly enough, none of us ended up hooking up. So it was really almost like a sink or swim thing. It's like, here, we're all here. Let's help each other out. And we weren't really thinking about the hookup thing. So, but I still am friends with those 30 law students and all the 12 of us that were, Mexicanos there at SMU. 2 of the 3 law students have died.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that wild? And it only leaves one of them. He must really be dead man walking. But but I know, it's like, how do you see 2 of your colleagues, pass away? But anyway, that none of us were romantically involved, with each other. We just all supported each other, because we all were going through the same thing, where it was and I did a video for SMU also on what my experience were as a Mexicana.
Mm-hmm.
And I was honest. There's no support at all for Hispanic students back in those days. Now,
right.
A little bit more now, but it's still a private, mostly white college.
So that there was only a few of you. I mean, total 12 of you going at SMU. How was that? I didn't obviously live in Dallas back then, or I was born in 77 to be honest, but like, how was that transition of demographics? How has that been? How have you seen that within Dallas since growing up?
I grew up in Oak Cliff when there were 5 Hispanic families in Oak Cliff. Everybody else was white. So I've seen it change. Not that I was there the whole time, because I was away at school. I lived on campus at the college, that SMU, and then I moved away and came back. So I didn't really actually see the transition. When I came back, I saw that there was white flight, and that the people who were buying up the properties were Hispanic, because they were probably cheap enough where you could afford it.
Right.
We were already there, because we moved in in the 60s to Oak Cliff, and none of my family lives in Oak Cliff anymore except me. So I didn't really eyeball see it, but I saw the changes after I got back. And especially when I got married, I didn't get married till I was around 30. And at the time, my soon-to-be husband was going to be a lawyer. Well, had finished law school. He said, well, all my clients are in Oak Cliff. I have the Mexicanos. They need legal help and blah, blah, blah. So here I am back in the So we've been here 30 years in Oak Cliff in this house.
Wow. Oh, in the same house? Wow. So growing up, because you weren't the only, because you weren't, your parents didn't have to come across the border. Obviously, there's different things. What was your parents' emphasis for you growing up? Did they emphasize education? What was their dream for you growing up?
It's really weird. I'm the only one of 4 girls that went to college. But my dad told us, each one, when we graduated from high school, that we could do whatever we wanted to do, and that he would help us, with the next step. My older sister picked beauty school, so he paid for her beauty school. And we weren't rich. My father was a welder. And then I'm next to my older sister. I was the one that picked college because, I went to Skyline, and at that time, all my friends were going to college. So, hell, I didn't even know what it meant. But I just said, I want to go to college. And then the sister after me went straight to work for the IRS. So she didn't go to college. And the sister after her, again, didn't go to college and was a administrative assistant for, forever. So, the reason, like I said, the reason I picked college was because all the friends I had were going to college. And I would have gone to Stephen F. Austin, but the Hispanic outreach coordinator at SMU came to my mother and dad's house, came to our house, and said she really doesn't need to go there. She needs to go to SMU. Apparently, I had good scores. So he said, with these scores, she really needs to go to a better college. And so my dad was like, "Oh, wow, you came all the way over here to tell me that?" And he's like, "Okay, she can go to SMU." And that's how it happened. I mean, it's just very, things in your life happen that you don't know why. You think you're taking this path and you end up going this way.
No
And
kidding.
yeah, and so and it was the best thing for me. The guy said, go ahead and apply for all the grants and scholarships that you can, so that she can live on campus, because it's better. Because from Oak Cliff to SMU is a good long way, and so that's what we did. And I
Yeah.
ended up getting a couple of scholarships and a couple of grants, but I still had student loans. So that, like I said, it was up to he left it up to us to decide how we wanted to continue.
That's really awesome, because I feel like sometimes you're almost living your parents' dream. So the fact that they let you kind of dream however you wanted to dream, I think
Yeah.
that's so
And
awesome.
I think that's why I wish he would have made my other sisters go to college, because I tell you, the sister after me, she would have been a great lawyer. She worked for the IRS, and she was in management and stuff, but she didn't never got her degree. And my other sister, I think, would have had a better life if she'd have gone to college. But you never know. You just don't know.
Did you
So
know when you were going to SMU, did you have any idea what you wanted to do? Like, were you like,
that,
I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to save the world, I'm going to like
I had no idea. I ended up with a degree in journalism, and only because I had written an article about women's rights or something, and I ended up in the journalism school. And that little article came out in the first women's magazine at SMU, or maybe one of the first. I don't think it was the first, but and that's how I ended up in journalism. I just wrote down some stuff that I guess I was feeling. I don't know. I don't know that how journalists really do it. I found out later that's how they do it. But I think, again, it's you know life just pulls you in a way that you don't know that it's pulling you that way, and that's why I ended up in journalism. So I have
so
a degree in journalism from SMU.
and
Never
then
used it once.
well, I mean, I guess that can kind of be debated in some form or fashion, right?
No,
Because
true, true.
journalism's right. They have journalists right. They have to do research. You
Yeah,
have to, and those are a lot of things that you ended up doing when you got into politics. But
absolutely.
how did that shift happen? So you graduated from journalism school, then you end up going to law school. Like how
No,
did?
no, no. We didn't go to law.
Oh,
I
you
didn't
didn't
go to
do law school.
No, no, no. I didn't even touch it. I knew some lawyers. I knew some guys in law school. That's as close as I got. I dated a guy who went to law school. But no, after college, I worked in retail. I was hired as a buyer's assistant because I had a degree from SMU. Not They didn't care what it was in. It was just a degree.
hmm
And so I went right into administration in retail, and I worked my way up. Became a buyer. I bought ladies swimsuits and coats, and from there, then your next step at that time was to be a assistant store manager and a store manager. So that's what I did. I followed that all the way through, and it was a store called Joski's, and I think it turned into Dillard's, and that's what it is right now. But and then from retail, what did I do? I left retail, and that's when I started my career with training. I went right from retail into training, and then I worked for Zales in the training department. Nations Bank, which is Bank America now, in the training department. and Blockbuster.
Now, for those who are young, Blockbuster used to be where you go to get the videos.
Exactly. So I was in the training department, and when you're in training, you can train anything as long as someone gives you the book.
Right.
Like, okay, the next thing we'll do is
turn the page. Oh, yes, this is what we're going to do.
That's what we're going to do. So that kind of gave me the public speaking confidence, because I don't think I was confident in public speaking before that, but so many years in the training field, you got to speak before,
Right.
many different groups. And so then after, let's see.
Well, let me ask you a quick question then.
Yeah.
Being like you graduated in 76 and then you started working and how was it being a Mexican American woman at that time going into the professional world?
Awful. We have not even we've made a little dent, but I wouldn't say we've made a giant dent. I mean, there are more Hispanic female professionals today than there were in my time when I was growing up. But when I was going through my, stepping stones, there was not one. And if there was one, she was afraid you'd be taking her job. It was that kind of atmosphere, where what's the chisme, if you put a bunch of Mexican crabs in a bucket, none of them will ever get out because the other one pulls the other one down.
Oh, wow.
So I think it was that kind of thing all the way going through every step of my career. There was never not, now we've got the groups. We've got Hispanic Women's Network. We've got H100. I just made a list for a friend of mine of all the Hispanic organizations because they're recruiting Hispanics. Imagine that. And so, there's more now, but I still think there isn't enough of a dent. People have tried. I think, big companies have made a kind of like a afterthought of hiring Hispanics.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's because they satisfy the diversity issue with hiring blacks. And, oh, yeah, let's hire one or two Hispanics.
Yeah. And it's sad, like across the board, right? Because I know so many, regardless of ethnicity, I know so many that have done so much and are so qualified, yet sometimes it's the name that people get scared of. So did you have anybody that mentored you that you could reach out to? I mean, you just had to kind of.
When it changed for me, it was, what was it? I guess it was around 88. I had just met my husband and we got married like 3 months after we met. But anyway, but he was in that group with Domingo, Albert Garcia, Steve Salazar, Juan Jasso, and oddly enough, what's his name? Gutierrez and Alonso.
So if people aren't aware, these are a lot of prominent people in the Dallas area.
Now they are, but back then,
yes, I know them as prominent people in Dallas because
of how they are. But back then, they were going through the same thing, that Dallas is.
Right.
And granted, that was 20 years ago at least, and so things changed for me when we would all get together, and there was all of us. We couldn't just go to the movies, just two couples. It was like all six of us. But we had some great talks in terms of what it should be, and that was the year I think that the guys went and turned Cockrell Hill from all white to Hispanic, because most of the residents were Hispanic, but all the elected officials were white. And that's still happening in Texas. The residents are white, but the elected officials, the residents are Hispanic, but the elected officials are white. So anyway, they came and they saw that, and they saw that, they could easily walk every house in Cockrell Hill and that was Hispanic lived there, and asked him to go vote. And because a Hispanic was going to a Hispanic house, they're more likely to go vote because you're asking them to go vote and you look like them. Okay. And that's a real key statement right there, because it makes a big difference in everything we do. And that's what we try to tell the whites and the blacks. You got to have someone who's Hispanic, to ask people to go vote or to do the census. They're not going to do it if you don't look like them.
Yeah.
So anyway, they canvassed the whole city of Copper Hill Canal. It's only like 2 miles wide. So they won. They put all the Hispanics in office. And so ever since then they worked on the city council for Dallas, and they worked on the state reps for Texas, and they worked on, commissioner's court. So little by little, they've at least made the imprint. And when all the guys got elected, my husband got elected to Justice of the Peace 25 years ago. Domingo was elected to state rep. I don't know what Roberto was in. Steve Salazar got elected eventually to council. So when the guys had their own thing going, they're like, okay, ladies, it's your turn. Come on, women. So the first one was Elba. She ran for city council. She won, and she served for 8 years. And those 8 years, she appointed me to the Dallas Parks and Recreation Board. So I served for 8 years there. And that was my biggest lesson, my biggest teaching moment, because I could see how City Hall runs, and I could see who did the work and who didn't, who would be honest with you and who wouldn't. And so when it was time for her when her term was up, she said, "Okay, get ready, you're next."
Because and that's how you got truly involved in politics.
Yeah, and it was really like I said, it was being part of the conversation with what should be happening with our area, because there were at that time then we were more Hispanics than whites, but we were being represented by whites. And so that's when it changed for me. I tell you, it was really, getting to know Domingo and Elba, and and really being part of it with Juan, and then they started being friends with the Southern Dallas representatives, John Wiley, all those guys, and so there was sort of a coalition there, and that's that was my entry. And so it wasn't so foreign to me to run or to be asked to run, because I had already been in the position of park board for 8 years, and so I knew pretty much the ways of City Hall and how it runs and stuff, so it wasn't so difficult.
So what would you say when you were in there, when you got voted in and you're representing the area that you grew up in, you're representing people who are looking up to you and counting on you? What would you say your biggest obstacle was while you were in city council, and what were the things that you're most proud of that you could say, like, I'm so proud that I was part of that?
I think the hardest thing after I got voted in was trying to please everyone, because when you're a city council, when you're representing a district, you want everyone to be not to be happy, but you want to be able to solve their problems. And that's what I realized later on in life, is that I'm a problem solver. I'm a connector. I would say, well, call this department or call that department, and then call me back. Let me know what they said. But at least I could tell them how to get a problem solved. And to me, that was the best thing. Okay. The hardest thing was, not being able to address all the problems. Because once you get in there, it's not so much a district thing. It's like, and I was just back in City Hall this week. It's like a bigger thing. I mean, we were voting on contracts worth millions and millions of dollars that didn't just affect your district, it affected the whole city. And how now, if I was the only no vote, it wouldn't matter, because there's 13 of us, there's 14 of us. So, you really had to count to 8 to get something passed, because that's the majority. And if you didn't have your 8 votes, forget it.
Right.
So, unfortunately, even though it was a good project or whatever, if 8 people didn't know that you supported it or that you wanted it to go through, it wouldn't happen.
What would you say? Is there anything that you regret while you were in city council? Like, is there anything that you would have wished you would have done differently, or you could have changed when you look back at your time in city
I
council?
think, yeah, I try to do too much, and I see what the city council people do now, and it's really not even close to what, I came on board and I established the Dallas Animal Services Task Force, where, because someone came to me from my district and said, this is what's happening. You've got to do something about it. It's happening in your district. So I established a task force for the Dallas Animal Services. The other one was gays and lesbians. At that time, there wasn't even a committee to address the issues that they have in our city. So I started that task force, and then the graffiti task force. I started that one, and I think, like I said, I think it was too much. If I had just said, I'm going to concentrate on graffiti, that would have been a whole lot easier.
Right. So you were there
And
for 8 years, right?
huh?
You were there for how long were you there total? 8 years, or less than 4 years? And
4 years.
And then at that point, were you? Because I try not to know too much because I want to ask genuine questions I want to ask genuine questions because I want to be able to have a true conversation instead of something very staged. At that point, after the 4 years, did you decide to get out, or were you voted out?
Oh no, I was voted out. I mean, my opponent won. Was a white guy from Kessler Park, which is all white, mostly all white. But I had a big constituency. I probably would have won if I had run last year, but I have no interest in politics anymore.
So let's now life after politics.
There's life after politics. Yeah. No, I didn't. I came in 30%. He got 60, and I was done. My health suffered. It took me about a year to get back healthy. Very, very thin, and then just kind of eased into all the other things I'm doing. So it's been a blessing. I can't say anything else but that it was a blessing that I didn't win.
So tell me now that you've been after, like, once you got out of politics, where did your mindset go after you were done? Like, you're like, okay, now this chapter has closed. Right. Where, at this point, where was your mindset in regards to what your next step was going to be?
I really did. I had no plans whatsoever. Thank God my husband, has had a steady job for 25 years. He's been a judge for 25 years. So, I really didn't have a plan. And I think that was part of my blessing. Is that, I said, God, whatever you want me to do, just steer me there. And I'd say for the last so I left in 13. I didn't do anything in 14 and half of 15. Then someone came up to me and said, a lot of people, and we need to get some stuff done. Can we hire you as a contractor to do some things? And so that was the middle of 15, and I didn't sign a contract, my first contract as a consultant, until 2016. So I've been doing it now 3 years.
And how has that been with doing consulting?
I tell you, it is the best job in America. You set your own schedule. You don't have to go to work every day, get up, and you stay in an office for 8 hours. I couldn't do that again if I had to. I think I would just let go of everything, because once you're in a different routine, it's hard to go back to the same routine, to that routine. And I know what that is. I know what it is to get up and go to work every day. But as a consultant, I think you have the ability to set your own schedule, and your limits. You say, well, this is what my contract says, and this is all I can do. Right. Because that's what's in your contract. So it's very different. And people got very wealthy doing that. I can see why.
So you've led several philanthropic efforts. Before we get to like the main, like this most recent thing, what things have you been able to lend your expertise to, whether it's within the community, within the, Dallas Hispanic Latino community, or outside of that you've been really integral in trying to help put money behind it, raise money behind it, those types of things since you have gotten out of politics?
Yeah, I think one of the big things is in different organizations, we take these different surveys where you discover what your strengths are. And I want you to take one of those tests to see where your strengths are. But one of my strengths is a connector, being a connector.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, I know a lot of people from when I was in politics and just, knowing being in Dallas forever. My biggest strength has been to help people connect with those people they need to connect with. And that's what my biggest strength is really connecting people to get to a place where they want to be, to raise money, to to give them a bigger sense of where they could be, not just in a little box, but to grow bigger.
Right. Well, obviously, having the connections that you do, it's probably very satisfying because you've been able to meet so many different people from so many different walks of life and so many different things to be able to say, you know what? And I bet, and I might be putting words in your mouth, so tell me if I am, but I would imagine you probably look at somebody and without them asking, you're like, you know what? I bet you this person needs to meet this person. I bet you're already doing that in your head.
Exactly. I am. It's just one of the things that, is in my personality traits. And I realized that after I took a couple of those tests, I'm like, oh, that's what I like to do. I like to connect people. So, it happens to work, not only in professional, but your personal life too.
Well, now, I mean, the most recent thing I know has been this kind of partnership between the University of Texas at Arlington and DART, which is Dallas Area Rapid Transit. I actually used to work at DART. Yeah, I worked at DART for about 3 years in the marketing department. So and the city of Dallas, Department of Aviation, right? So to create this opportunity for students at UTA to be included in a year-long transportation leadership academy. So I know that's a mouthful, but can you tell me what your involvement with that has been and what the purpose of that program is? Because I did have to go and read about it because obviously that's recent. I haven't been at DART since
Very few people know about it
2015.
now. Yeah, I guess through the people I knew and met, in politics, we were out on a social event and someone came up to me and said, well, I think we went through that. Someone came and said, a lot of people. Anyway, I I knew Gary Thomas, the president of DART, very well beforehand, or he knew of me because I was on city council and he was at DART. Anyway, I was telling him about the academy that Jorge Baldor had put together. Were you here in Dallas? Yeah, you were.
Oh,
Leadership
sure.
Development.
Oh, yes. LGD, right?
Yes. Well, the first year he put the group together, and they went over to Mexico and met with Vicente Fox and all this stuff to get them ready to run for politics. And that was the whole idea for that academy. And so, out of the first 12 that were in that academy, 4 of them were elected to public office. And so I was telling Gary this, and he was just like, "Oh my gosh." He goes, "That's great." He goes, "I'd kind of like to do that." And I said, "You mean like an academy? Like a leadership academy?" He goes, "Yeah, for transportation." So I said, "Okay." And that was all the direction I got.
Wow. Okay, so tell me what did you
happened
do?
is I didn't want to do high school because they wouldn't be job ready when they graduated. We want them to go to college, obviously, and we couldn't hire them. Well, a company wouldn't hire them. So I thought about college graduates or college seniors. And so I quickly called Michelle Bobadilla over at UTA. And I said, "Michelle, I just got out of a meeting with Gary Thomas, president of DART, and he wants to start this program for college seniors. So she made sure we met with the president, with three of the deans, with the president's assistant or chief of staff. Anyway, we went back and forth and on how this program would be administered. And one day I just figured, well, there's 13 vice presidents. Each of them can do a different presentation every Saturday because the kids have to go to college during the week, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the academy was Saturdays only and with a different VP for 13 weeks because there's 13 VPs.
Right.
So that's how we did it.
And I worked with Nevin and Robbie over in marketing.
Okay. And you know what? I was not there the day Nevin came down. But anyway, so I still haven't met Nevin, but I've been doing this for 4 years. So anyway, so we put all this together, and then I guess we started in February, going back and forth and meeting and, hashing everything out. And we signed an interlocal agreement with DART and UTA in August of that year. I think it was 2017. It took us almost the whole year, but we were just in time to get the kids on board in September when they went back to school. So the whole idea is that we take college seniors and we get them job ready for when they graduate, so they don't graduate thinking the corporate world is this la la land. It's hard work and you need to know this and this and this. And so by the time they finish our academy in 13 weeks, they at least know how things work because they've talked to a different vice president every week, and they'll never get that. I mean, what college student gets to do that?
Yeah.
Talk to a different vice president in a corporation every week. So anyway, we did the first one in 17-18 and graduated 5 students. I think out of those 5, I had 3 Hispanics. Yes. Michelle made sure. No,
Michelle is let me just kind of preface this to the audience. If you plan on going to school in Texas, or you have kids who are going to school and they want to go to school, and University of Texas at Arlington, we have a mutual friend, Michelle Bobadilla, who is one of the most amazing people I have ever met in my entire life. She is somebody who will bend over backwards to make sure that kids have an opportunity to go to college. And every university needs a Michelle to make sure, if that's what the path somebody wants to take to go to university, every university needs to have a Michelle Bobadilla to make sure that happens.
Well, and let me say that that's what happened to me. And my outreach coordinator was last name was Gonzalez. He was with the Gonzalez Funeral Home here in Dallas, but he took some time off to be a outreach coordinator, and he's the reason I went to SMU.
I love hearing
that.
So
she's doing what other people have done.
Yeah.
And we haven't been out there,
I'm sure all outreach coordinators are as passionate as Michelle.
And
I just happen to know Michelle, so
universities have to make sure that there's an outreach coordinator at every university because they're the ones that make things happen. And I knew she was there, so that was the quickest way that I could get them to agree on how much the scholarships were going to be. So in this academy, Gary agreed to a $10,000 scholarship for every student that gets accepted into the academy, which is what a year is at UTA. It's $5,000 a year. And they also get a paid internship from June, July, and August. So they have money in their pocket, and then they have a scholarship to get them through their last year. And to be successful in the program, they've just got to miss one time, but they've got to be there every Saturday morning from 9 to 12. Mm-hmm. And those are the kinds of things that, these students have to understand, is that when you get out in the real world, there's really not much to say when you're starting out in the business world. you've got to be able to do everything and volunteer for everything and be wherever you need to be.
Yeah.
And that's what these kids agreed to that's what these students agreed to is to come to all 13 sessions from 9 to 12 on Saturday mornings. And they also provide me a feedback form. But we interview them. In fact, we're fixing to put the application out again for next year. The application will go online at UTA starting next week, maybe this week, next week for sure. And so then all those applications will go into UTA, and my friend at the Career Center will weed out the ones that don't qualify, and then I'll have 20 people to interview.
Wow. I think.
So
Do you think this could be a
system.
Is this done? Are you aware if this is done in any other cities?
No. We started 17, 18 was our first year, 18, 19, second year, 19, 20, third year, and this will be the fourth year, 20 to 21.
I mean, I would imagine this could be a really good model for future, for other cities and other transit authorities.
Yeah. Well, and then I was asked to use the same model for the hospitality industry. And the company would provide their executive team to provide, morning sessions on Saturday, and they would be hired part-time until they finish college. So the model is moving. I'm looking at I'm in talks with them right now. It's a hospitality group here in Plano, and they just need people, and they're not looking for high school graduates because high school still has to go to college, and that's a long time, really 4 years in the when you think about the time in a company. But so they're looking for college seniors who can go through a program like this, an academy like this, or they're fellows, I guess we will call them, so that they actually have some working knowledge before they graduate.
That is such a great model. Like, I could totally see that being picked up. Who knows who's going to end up listening to this and think that's a great model and that needs to be done.
Oh, yeah.
Reaching out to you and everything. That's so good. So let me ask you, just kind of to tie in the end before I ask the fun questions. Where have you seen, since you graduated college and growing up in Dallas and growing up in a time that was not necessarily the most welcoming for people of all
Latinas.
colors, and
Well,
being Latinas, where do you see Dallas, or how much do you think Dallas has progressed since you grew up, or where do you see it going?
I would say that it has progressed. I mean, we didn't have an office like the one Liz Cedillo has in City Hall right now. I think she's the welcoming immigrant office. We didn't have that, and that we pushed for. I know Elba pushed for it a lot, Elba Garcia, and we supported it. And so she's still there, thank goodness. The first thing a new mayor does is cut all the programs that weren't his, and that one wasn't his, but it's still there. So I think we're moving towards, some equity for Latinos. And I was reading a post on Facebook that said there were a record number of Latino graduates from college this year.
Oh, yeah, I read that article.
I know. So I look for things to change, more drastically. But I think for right now, it's been very slow.
Well, hopefully it'll just continue to grow and get better with, other people within the community that are pushing and hopefully running for office. Obviously, I'm not there anymore, so I don't know who's been running and what that looks like. But hopefully that just will continue to grow and the equity will catch up at some point. So thank you so much for that. So we can get into the fun stuff, Delia, because I know I sent you some questions. So I'm going to ask you some of those now. What is your favorite word?
And I said my favorite word is awesome.
Why awesome?
Because to me, when someone does something that helps someone else or that helps themselves, it's an awesome thing. That someone has realized what that is.
I love it.
I don't know if that makes sense, but
no. And your favorite hobby?
Favorite hobby? What did I say? I walk a lot. Did I put walking?
You put antique stores.
Oh,
It's like a
myself is walking, but with my husband is scouring antique stores. I don't
But
need
you
a
kind of
thing.
walk at the same time, right? You walk and
True,
scour.
yeah. There's some good antique stores here. Um, yeah, I don't need a thing. I mean, I've furnished, you know, one or two houses, but I always want to find something unique, something that you wouldn't normally see. And so my big thing last month was horses. So I bought
Mhm.
a big wooden horse that was blue, and I put that in my living room, like I really needed it.
Well, here's a couple that I didn't ask you, but are always interesting to
Mhm.
ask. I always love hearing the answers. First, what are you curious about right now? Like, what kind of makes you go and you want to learn more?
I think really I would like to learn more about. I just want to see what happens in the next 10 years. I've been very blessed. I've never wanted for anything. Even when I was a kid, I thought, I mean, even though we were poor, I thought I had everything. But I want to see what things are like in 10 years. My kids are 30 and 37. And in 10 years they'll be 40 and 47. So I want to see what things are like in 10 years.
And what would you say? And it doesn't have to be professional. It can be
Uh-huh.
however, in whatever capacity. But what have you felt like you failed at, but it's taught you something? I mean, every failure teaches us something, right? But
No, yeah, it was really cheap. Yeah. I think I would have liked to have gone and get my MBA, and I didn't. And I should have, 10 years ago or 20 years ago. I wish I would have gone my MBA. At this point, I don't need it. I always say my city council days were my MBA. That was 4 years
no
of,
kidding,
of,
right?
of learning everything. But yeah, I think an MBA, I would have loved to have gotten an MBA.
And your favorite Dallas restaurant because I have so many. I mean, I will be back later this year
Oh,
to
good.
visit, so I'll have to make sure to connect with you. But
Yeah.
for people, I know a lot of people from San Diego even have been visiting lately. So, what are your favorite spots in Dallas?
Well, obviously Oishi,
So
which is over, where it is,
good. Yeah.
the White Cliff and the Tollway. I love that place. It's the best Chinese food ever. And then, of course, Sagwan.
Which is a bakery, and it's so
Sagwan.
good.
I love it.
And then we always end every interview of what do you prefer, red, white, or rosé?
Red.
Do you have a
Red in the
particular
fall
one?
and white in the spring. Red when it's cold and white when it's hot.
Hey, sometimes you got to change it up, right? Got to.
Yeah.
It's hard for me, but I've been finding some whites that I actually like. It's been hard, but
Well,
I find some so I can actually have something cold in the summer.
yeah, we went to that wine train thing in San Francisco, or wine country, San Francisco. The wine train they do up there,
Right.
and we got some great wine. So we've been. It's called. Oh, I can't remember the name of it. I'll get you the name. But that was the best one. Either that, or I was already so drunk that everything tasted good. So
That's the kind of train ride I like.
Yeah, we were on the wine train for sure.
Well, Delia, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me and kind of just have this time to wine and chisme. You guys, thank you so much. I will make sure to include the information that Delia has, including the restaurant recommendations, and I'll include a link to the UTA program. Yeah, I will make sure to include a link to the UTA DART program in the show notes. But until next time, everybody, muchísimas gracias and saludos.
Saludos.
It was great having the opportunity to speak with Delia. It's so interesting to hear the come up of people I've admired for years and had the opportunity to know during my time in Dallas. But gente, we have so much more ahead of us, and know that there are people like Delia still paving paths is uplifting and keeps me optimistic. Guess what, mi gente? I have a treat for you. If you are in the San Diego area and would like to treat yourself to a day of wine and sunshine, make sure to purchase a ticket to the Uncork San Diego Wine Festival for Saturday, March 28th. Link to the event can be found in the show notes as well and in Eventbrite. If you use the code The Wine and Chisme, you will get an additional $5 off. Do you have a story that needs to be told or know someone who does? Then please reach out to me via my social media channels. You can reach me on Instagram at The Wine and Chisme and Facebook at The Wine and Chisme Podcast, because you all know that I really want to hear your story. Remember, if you want to hear more The Wine and Chisme, please subscribe, rate, and review. 5-star ratings are always appreciated, and good reviews are appreciated even more. Until next time, gente, saludos.